Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Things We Know. I'm Lisa Callahan.
And I'm Kari Morin.
And today we have a fantastic guest with us. I'm so excited. Tressa
Okay.
Pope, an international, maybe someday, but right now you're an independent mortgage broker based here in Los Angeles. And I was trying to figure out, I probably saw you for the first time in 2019, but we really started to know each other in 2020. So we've known each other for just a little over 4 years. And I'm just thrilled that you are here with us today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you, Lisa and Kari, for having me. I'm excited.
Yay.
We're
All
so
right.
excited you're here.
I will start with her bio, which is so impressive. From the minute I met Tressa, I just thought she was an absolute rock star. I've told her that for years. She believes it, and I love it. So let me tell you why she's a rock star. Tressa has been a mortgage broker for 23 years. She has really progressive experience within the mortgage industry. She quickly assumed higher levels of leadership at Countrywide Home Loans, First Horizon, and MetLife Loans. Before forming the Pope Group, she served as an operations manager and loan officer with Prime Lending. Her firm, as I said, the Pope Group, serves as an independent mortgage broker out of Burbank, California. She is an affordable housing specialist. That's kind of my favorite part about her, who volunteers with the Affordable Housing Initiatives and City Planning. She earned an MBA from Keller Graduate School of Management and a BFA from Carnegie Mellon. She's also an amazing actress. In 2023, Tressa appeared on NPR's Air Talk with Larry Mantle and is a regular housing consultant for the LA Times. And then this is super exciting. Most recently, Tressa was selected to participate in LA Forward's Progressive Leadership Academy. So if that is not a resume to mic drop on, I don't know what is.
Yeah, what a slacker.
I know.
Wow.
And just
I'm
like
really
a woman, I'm
thrilled.
like, but I still haven't done enough.
Whoa, right? Oh gosh. I love this part of introducing amazing people like yourself because it's like, wow, I hope you're receiving all that. I hope you're just sitting with all that because wow. And I'm happy to see you again because I got to meet you at our retreat. So
Yeah.
Tressa, let's start just by diving into your background because this is fun for me. I didn't know a lot of this. You spent 15 years, I think, in an administrative support role before transitioning into commission-only role as a mortgage broker. So can you share more about your career journey and what inspired this change?
Yeah, I remember it's like when you have the BC and the AD, where it's like that one moment in your life where something happened and it caused that pivot. I was an operations manager at a branch, and just like Dwight Schrute, I wasn't an assistant to the branch manager, but I was an assistant branch manager essentially. So I ran operations, the branch manager ran sales, recruited loan officers, supported loan officers, while I did more of logistics, day-to-day administration, and managed the staff. And he got an opportunity to advance his career, move to another company. So he took it, he left. And everyone, including the staff, other branch managers in the Southern California area, they assumed I would then take on that role. Some of the local branch managers even took me to lunch and they said, okay, so when you take over, these are some of the things to look out for. This is how we run things. We know that you do this, this, and this well. I was invited to be on conference calls with them because it was just this assumption, oh, well, Tressa will, take on this role. Then our top loan officer in the office decided to throw his hat in the ring. He called the suits and said, if I don't get the new branch manager position, I'm leaving. I'm walking. So they came to our office and sat me down privately before they announced it to the staff. They took me into the office and said, unfortunately, we're going to have to pass you over because this other gentleman wants the job. Here's the kicker. It gets worse, ladies. He's never been a manager before. So can you help him? Sort of mentor and train him on how to be a manager even though he's now going to he's going to be over you. He's going to take a position where he's your superior, and he'll need a lot of your help and support.
I
So
mean, I
that's,
wish that was a rarity story, but that is
Yeah.
not that uncommon.
Yeah, it's not that uncommon.
Right? And it's infuriating every time.
right.
Mhm.
But that's like my superhero moment where I was like, okay, F this. I smiled and nodded. Yeah, sure. Yeah, would love to.
Your acting came in right there.
Yeah. And then in that moment, in my head, I said, okay, I'm gonna transition. And I immediately started interviewing people on how to do that. I went back to those branch managers that supported me and said, it did not go my way. What can I do now? And they said, yeah, you're right. Let's help you get out of that situation. And
Nice.
I started interviewing women that were loan officers so I could learn from them. And I just started piecing together my exit plan
Mm.
so that I could then transition
Snaps.
into,
Amazing.
yeah. But that was where it was like the light bulb. Oh, you're always going to be passed over in this scenario. Like at this
Right.
place, these suits did not see what was so obvious. So you have to change the environment.
So what part of that experience, and maybe it wasn't instantaneous, but obviously, like you said, I mean, that is the line in the sand that you will always remember. So what part of that then has impacted or influenced your purpose in helping other women?
I think it's a matter of, and especially with my work with Lisa here, is really looking at evidence.
Mm.
Mhm.
Going and saying, I did this, and in speaking to other women when they have a similar journey where they're like, I'm not good enough, or I don't think that I deserve something. Let's really look at the evidence.
Yeah.
Does that support that argument? I mean, look at what you've done already, what you've accomplished, and see where maybe you've been overlooked for an opportunity.
That's so fascinating.
I'm really impressed with how quickly you decided to, say this didn't go well for me. How do I make this work? Like that's just,
It was like a punch in the face.
right. But your
Yes, it was
response
right
to
to
it,
you.
you had many options and choices, and that's such an impressive response. That, like, as a former teacher, as a parent, as someone who's managed a lot of people, that's not always the first option people take. So
Right.
impressive. Where does that come from? This like, how do I learn and pivot and make this go my way?
And I think the lesson in that is also I didn't do it quickly, or maybe as quickly as I wanted to. So I had that punch in the face moment, but then it took me 2 years to leave.
Okay.
And that's just, that was my time, that was my journey, that's
Yeah.
fine. But
It's
I
kind
think
of a
that's another
blip in
thing
our
that we
careers.
do is we have like this moment where you're like, oh, I have this aha, and you maybe take some initial steps, but then you maybe retreat, you go back, and you do this kind of dance with yourself.
Okay, that is so important to say. I want everybody to hear that, right? That the story started out sounding like you were on it the next day, and you're crinkling up your nose for those of you who aren't watching YouTube. But I really want to talk about this again. So for any woman who's had this experience and they see so clearly where they've been passed over with absolutely no reason, it doesn't mean if you don't get out immediately that you have somehow failed.
Right.
You took your time. It was the beginning of that journey, and it took you 2 years to complete that part of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't like you just sat there and a pity party.
Right.
Things don't happen overnight. Even when you learn something new, it doesn't magically change everything. Yeah, I say that to my clients all the time. I'm like, okay, we learned something new today. And it doesn't mean you're never going to have that. In the process of transformation and growth, there are retreats. It is like the ocean that we just spent some time on a month ago at the retreat. It comes in and out, and so I think that's a really important piece of your story.
Right. And I was thinking, like, I mean, 2 years is a blip in the course of our career. It's a
in the
blip.
grand scheme of it.
And Lisa and I say this probably ad nauseum as coaches, like things do not happen overnight. You still took that option. You spent the time integrating, learning, collecting evidence. That's how transformation works. It doesn't like, it's not like, you know, a tent at a revival, like you're healed. It's definitely more like, oh, these are some baby steps that are really bringing me in a place where I'm never going to turn back. And that's usually, it takes a little time. I think that's an excellent thing to share. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared. So again, you and I know each other pretty well. I was thrilled, as was Kari, that you did come to the retreat. We've already made reference to that. And we joked that you didn't think you wanted to come, but you came, and we're so happy because you got to share your vibrant gloriousness with all of our other retreat participants. Can you talk a little bit about how your passion, your experience, I mean, I think we just touched on it a little bit with that last story, but how your passion, your experience, your voice aligns with our audience who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond, and all the, I mean, just all this great stuff that will help them make this next chapter their best, most vibrant chapter yet.
Yeah, sure. Love to. I want to speak a little bit about the retreat, and my hesitation was, especially because I know both of you from listening to the podcast, fangirling out right now, that I made the assumption that I was going to have to be very vulnerable in that space. And I was nervous about that, showing that vulnerability in, you know, with 20 something people, and, you know, and just having a hesitation of the safety of that, you know. But I will say that I was paired, matched gloriously, divinely with a roommate that I felt safe. I felt safe in showing at least one person vulnerability. And if with the weekend, there were more people, but right off the bat, by just having one person, that kind of let my guard down a little bit and let me be a little bit more vulnerable. And I would say that the exercise that was probably the most impactful for me was I couldn't remember, I keep calling it the brain train, but I think it's the belief chain.
Yes.
Okay.
I love that. Brain train.
Yeah, so I'm saying the brain train. But I think that was the most impactful because of what we just talked about, that going from, you know, sort of step to step, and just so the listeners are not completely in the dark, you start with a desired state. So as I was there at the retreat, visions were kind of entering my head of me in a teal suit, walking up on a stage, speaking to a large audience of people, not really knowing what that was, but that was the vision that I was getting as I was there at the retreat. So I could see where my desired state was and what I felt, what I was wearing, the environment. And by doing steps where we stood in different sort of states of our journey, it goes back to that same thing of just the incremental faithfulness of planting those seeds. So, and that was one of the themes that just kind of entered my head and space during that retreat, was the phrase planting and watering, planting and watering. And, you know, my spirituality, my faith is important to me. And I was reading a scripture there at the retreat that gave me the aha moment of, we're so focused on growth, we're so focused on the end result, and we grow and we're affected by growth, but we don't actually do the actual growing. The divine does the growing, and we plant and water. We plant and water. And by moving through that brain train, belief chain, that was the illustration for me of just be consistent with that plant and water. You know what the end result is that you want. You know what it looks like. You know what it feels like. Just be consistent with planting those seeds every day, every month, every, you know, year, whatever your goals look like, so that you realize the actual end result. You get to see it, and then you move on to the next one.
Yeah, you have a new desired state.
The song in my head listening to you is inch by inch, row by row.
Yeah,
You know that
yeah,
song? You know, gonna help this garden grow. Yeah, I was listening to you and I was just picturing you tending these like beautiful
Mhm.
seeds and watering and oh, that's
yeah.
love.
Well, and that's one of the things I love about you. I mean, we've been working together now almost, well, a little over 3 years. And you are always very clear on the paths that you're forging. You know, you have this amazing mission with the Pope Group and helping people get mortgages, and more importantly, helping them find out if they can't, why, and giving them the
Right.
Yeah.
education and the ability to, do that, even if it's not now, some point,
Mhm.
but now you are moving really heavily into the affordable housing space here in LA, which is, I mean, off the charts important.
Mhm.
And you do everything step by step. I mean, you and I check in weekly, and you
Mhm.
always have, these are my lanes and here's what I'm doing in each lane. And you are so good at pivoting, and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Like, again, share some more about your process around that for the women that are listening, because I can imagine there's a lot of women being like, oh, yeah, I do that, or, oh, I'd like to do that. So
Mhm.
tell me more about that.
Um, yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm collecting all of these projects, but for me, I really came down to, there's an exercise that I do with Lisa once a year called the Big Five, and really focusing on those those five, what are they called? Sectors,
Areas of life.
areas of life. Um, and by inching forward a little bit in each of them, there's love, money, career, that which is greater, and
Health.
health. Oh, yeah. See, that's where Tressa needs a little bit of work. Um, but really looking at each week, okay, where can I plant and water in each one of those to get where I want to be in my desired state? So even if it's just, you know, researching something. So, oh, I need to Google information about that. So I did that the other day. I'm in LA Forward's Progressive Academy, and it's an academy where we're learning to either work on a campaign or potentially run for office. And so part of that was really, I took a deep dive a couple days ago of learning about serving on a committee or a commission within the city. So what areas can I serve on a committee that's here in local government where I can contribute a voice to affordable housing, whether it be renters or people that are buying, because it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem nationwide. And I want to, and that was part of my belief chain exercise, was really being, I have something to say and I want people to listen. That was my through line there, was I have something to say and I want people to listen. And my desired state is that it's a large group of people that are listening. And I can start small, but eventually, inch by inch, it's going to grow to a large group of people that are going to listen to what I have to say. So you have to find out what's really important to you. You start with why. What's really, really important to you? Is it your family? Is it your um, is it how you're going to make an impact in this world, in your community? Why are you doing it? And what steps can you take to reach that desired state?
Yeah, I want to ask you more about that because one of these areas of impact that really just um, hits home for me from work I've done here with families and stability. Your work involves helping underserved families access resources to buy property. And you've mentioned encountering women, especially women of color, looking to buy property on their own. So I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind elaborating on the challenges that you're seeing and that they're facing in the mortgage and particularly in the mortgage industry, like the disparities in approval for women of color.
Sure. I mean, just like my origin story, where we see women of color not have a voice in certain spaces. I mean, we've seen numerous accounts where women of color go to even the hospital or the doctor, and they're not believed when they say that something hurts or they have some kind of pain, and they're sent home and could potentially die.
Mhm.
So I get very angry about it. I get very passionate about it. And where I've seen it happen in lending is the denial rate. So we see more Black women denied loans for homes than we do, other demographics. And I think part of it too is even representation in my job. So I remember going to a conference before I even transitioned into being a loan officer. And I went to like the diversity table, they have like the DEI table or whatever. So I went to the diversity table and I was asking the woman, hey, why don't we see more, loan officers of color or women of color? And she said, we can't, they don't want to work here. I mean, they don't enter the industry. So she said, believe me, Tressa, we have tried. We can't find them. So that's another, deficit already is you have someone, so say you have a person of color that wants to apply for a mortgage, usually they're going to have to apply with someone that does not look like them, and most of the time it's going to be a white male that they're interacting with. So right there's this barrier of, maybe uncomfortability with even applying. And that's something that I have like this little card on my desk. So even myself in my industry, when I go and look for conferences or coaching programs or courses about what I do, most of the people even training us are, white gentlemen, older white gentlemen. And so I made this little card that sits on my desk with snapshots of all these different conferences, and I put, be the role model that you don't see. So at some point you get frustrated with all of those things that don't exist. You're like, well, I guess I have to just be it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think stands in the way with people of color, primarily women of color, is being passed over or turned down in different spaces. And that includes when they're applying for loans, for car loans, for home loans. And so because they're passed down so much, they have this barrier already of not even trying, because it's already there. The good news on the flip side is we see the people that are investing in real estate right now, second to couples. So couples, of course, make up the large majority of people that buy property. Second to that are women. Women make up almost 20% of those that buy homes right now.
I saw
Whereas
that.
men, it's single digits.
Huh.
I saw that in your prep form, and I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm fascinated by that. Because it goes along with just this era that we're in, where women are realizing they don't need
they don't necessarily need a partner,
to build wealth
to do it.
To like create stability.
Yeah, and over 65% of real estate agents are women. So in terms of the real estate space, which is where a lot of people can start to build wealth, women are dominating that industry.
That's awesome. That is good news. So, I've already sort of mentioned this, with the Pope group, something that's really important to you is sort of education. I would call it coaching, your potential clients or new clients, especially clients that have been turned down in the past. And I know, Kari and I know that coaching is a lot about mindset work. You were just saying women of color have been, it's not just in real estate, right? They've hit walls in lots of different areas. And at some point you start to believe it, whether it's true or not, right? So talk a little bit about the mind shift work you do with the clients that you speak to.
Yeah, so a lot of times when I get an initial call, so, I get introduced a lot. So someone says, oh, I'm thinking I want to buy a house or I want to invest in real estate. Oh, you should talk to Tressa. So we get on, a discovery call. We get on a phone call initially. And right off the bat, I go, hi, I'm Tressa. I'm a mortgage broker. I hear you want to buy a house. Yeah, I probably can't. That's like the first thing that comes out of their mouth.
Wow.
Most of the time, I'm probably not ready. It's probably a few years away or never. Like this, we haven't even talked about anything yet.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So by having that where I stop them right away okay, we're not going to say those types of things. We're just exploring right now the mechanics of how to do it. But we also have to talk about that desired state. Is if you want it, we'll get you there. You just have to find out what the mechanics are. If there's any barriers that are getting in your way, and how to do it. So if you're here to learn how to do it, you don't need to say those kinds of words ever again. It's
And
not
what is-
me, I don't deserve it. Even looking at someone's credit report, there are things on their credit report that they're not even brave enough to dispute. So there could be
Wow.
something that's incorrect. Well, maybe I shouldn't call, or, I'll just pay it. And you're like, no, if this is wrong, or, it's incorrect, there's things that we can do to fix it instead of just, but I constantly see this self-deprecating approach, primarily from women, and even more so from women of color, that just think they don't deserve it, or that the system, and the system is, we know, stacked against them, but they just accept that as, well, there's no other way out.
Mm.
What's the
And
kind
I
of
feel that in them talking to people that maybe don't look like them, they would not have a conversation like this, where they can be vulnerable, transparent. Let's talk about the good, bad, and ugly and figure out how to get you to where you want to be.
so
Mm.
what is the
Yeah.
response when you say that to them in your lovely demeanor? Like,
I had,
do
I
they
had one lady where
cry?
she
Do
said,
they?
I'm going to re-nickname. She said, I'm going to nickname you, instead of Tressa Pope, it's Tressa Hope.
Oh,
And
I
I thought that
love
was so
that.
great. But yeah, a lot of times the answer is they did not think it was possible, and I've given them some new hope or motivation to be able to actually explore it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
See why I love her so much?
I do. Well, yeah, I could see that already when we got on that first Zoom and you were like, introduce yourself. I'm Tressa Pope and I'm dope. Like,
I
she
am
is
dope. Yeah. I have
She
dope.
is
I give
totally
people
dope.
hope. Yeah.
Tressa, curious about like how young people are when they're coming to you too, because I think there's
Oh, yeah.
there's probably a lot of like young women of color who probably think there's no way because of
Yes.
the economy right now. So I'm just curious about that too. Is that
So I see if they're younger, I think what's so inspiring is they normally try to pair up with someone else.
Hmm.
So if so women in their 20s, especially young professional women, will find another woman and they're like, let's just try to do it together.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it might be a family member, like a sister, cousin. We see a lot of that happen. Or someone maybe they went to college with. I last year spoke to the Black law students at USC. And so they had talked to, even on that Zoom call, they're like, oh, maybe some of us should pair up together and try to buy property together. So that's where I see with people in their 20s. People that are older, a lot of times they'll come by themselves. And I see women that are older are maybe coming from a relationship. So they might be coming from a divorce, or separation, where they're now approaching something by themselves and they feel very overwhelmed with doing something financial by themselves, when maybe they were in a relationship where the other person carried a lot of the financial stuff. But yeah, I think I see a lot more. It's kind of funny, it's refreshing. People in their 20s seem a little bit more confident right now, whereas people that are in their later 30s and beyond have more insecurity.
That's
Interesting.
fascinating. I'll have to
Mhm.
come back to that.
Mhm.
Your professional journey has a lot of leadership roles. Like your resume is, at major institutions before you formed the Pope
Mhm.
Group. So tell me about those experiences and how they shaped your approach to being an independent broker.
So yeah, I advanced pretty quickly in terms of promotions. And
Of course you did. It's not at
I
all
think it was because,
surprising.
and maybe it was because I was from,
Yeah.
act. So I was originally an actor, and I started temping at mortgage companies to pay for my acting role. And then I liked getting checks and making money. So left that. And I think because it wasn't my first career choice, I didn't have this fear that I was going to be fired. I remember, saying to like my roommate, my husband, yeah, I'll never be fired. And they're like, why? And I'm really good. I'm just that good. I mean, if they fire me, number one, they're stupid. And number two, I could easily get a job somewhere else. So I just navigated in those corporate spaces with such confidence because I never had this fear of like getting in trouble or being fired. And I didn't do anything wrong, but that's just how I navigated that space. But I also, and maybe it's because I was an actor, and as an actor, you're basically an entrepreneur, that when I worked in corporate spaces, and it's how I trained my staff, we were like a miniature business. So if I ran a team of people, said we're a miniature business, our clients are maybe our colleagues, so maybe a loan officer, a salesperson, that's our customer. And so we have to operate in a way where we want good customer service, meaning good relations with our colleagues in our other departments. So I think it was probably something different and new in a corporate space where someone maybe hadn't seen someone run it like that. And I think it's just my artist brain that helped me navigate the confines of, corporate America. But
It
how
sounds like
that's,
you took ownership in a way that probably most people don't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I remember when I first came to Los Angeles and this was the times where everybody didn't have a cell phone. And I was meeting with a manager, like a talent manager to maybe represent me. And halfway through the meeting, he got a phone call. And he was like, oh, it's for you. And it was someone because I said, I want to make sure I'm safe. So I had someone from like, where I was temping. I said, call this number, make sure like I'm okay. And I'll, tell you over the phone. And he was like, so impressed. He was like, who thinks of that? And I said, well, I mean, who knows? You could be a crazy person.
That's impressive.
But I talked to even during that meeting, what made him sign me as a client, and we're still friends to this day, is I actually had like a marketing plan. I came with a marketing plan for my acting career, and he was like, what actor comes with like a marketing plan?
Well,
Yeah, so it
I
was
mean,
just,
I know your childhood, like we've talked about that some.
yeah,
And well, first I've met your mom and she is a pistol. So I mean, when we say, how did Tressa get this way? I know now because I met her mom.
yeah.
She's amazing. But I remember we talked about this when I asked you one time, like, how did you go from being an actress into this? And yes, there's the temp piece of it, but you were talking about when you were little, you were an entrepreneur. Like you
Yes.
did little things when you were little to sort of,
Yeah.
you
I
didn't
sort
play
of played
school, you played
office and
business. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's
So
I
awesome.
gathered all the
everything.
kids. I gathered all the kids from the neighborhood one day, and we went outside and played with like watercolors and paints and stuff. And then we went to someone's porch that had like a enclosed porch, and we hung them all up, and we invited all our parents to come over and pay for them. So we made a gallery, and so we had all our art up, and then I said whatever piece you like, this is how much it costs, and yeah, we made them buy our art.
It's
And
brilliant
yeah.
because, I mean, who better to sell to than the parents of the artist? That's so great. Brilliant. So
Yeah.
I mean, you were somewhat, this is all, like all these positions have created even more brilliance, but you were already that way. It sounds like you have an entrepreneurial mindset and a way to really lead people that helps them, like bring them the best out of themselves.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I think one of the things too in working in corporate America was really how to manage staff and make sure that I was very clear with expectations. I know this is a weird thing to be proud of, but whenever I had to let go of someone in the corporate space, I'd sit down and they would say, I know what this is. You're letting me go. Like they already, and that's just because we had so much conversation that it was never a surprise.
That's so great.
No,
So
that's
They could
important.
say, I
totally
know
something to be
exactly what
proud
this
of.
is. I didn't do it. I didn't get to where I needed to get to. And, someone once said to me, um, when you're leading and managing people, you don't necessarily want them to be fearful of you in terms of your wrath, but you want them to fear disappointing you,
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that's more powerful than, oh, I'm afraid, that Tressa's going to yell at me for doing something wrong. Whereas I'm more fearful that I'm going to let her down because she is investing in me and she has hope in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to the hope piece. So let's move into the affordable housing initiatives and the city planning. I mean, we both live in LA. Lots of cities have a homeless issue or unhoused. I'd rather use the word unhoused issue. Many, and it's only gotten worse since COVID. LA is, the weather is such that makes it easier than say Chicago to live,
Right.
to be unhoused. But it is a priority, I know, with our mayor, because it is unacceptable. And it is, and it makes me happy to know you're on the case. But talk a little bit about this, how this aligns maybe in your big five even. I mean, yes, clearly there's a mortgage connection, right? But like, to me, this is such a purposeful desire for you.
Yeah.
So share a little bit about that, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a family that didn't necessarily have, a lot of wealth. And so my mother, she worked 3 jobs. She was a school teacher by day. On the weekends, she would play piano and organ for churches, weddings, different things. And then she also sold, she had the Tupperware parties. She had like a Tupperware business. So she would do that as well. So she was
The
working those 3
70s.
different jobs. Guess what? She owned a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, she somehow was able to own a house by herself. And so that's great inspiration for me. And I had a father that was unhoused towards the end of his life. He chose to live in his vehicle, and so, having him experience the eviction process and just watching my mom and how she grew up, it really gives me a heart for some of the people that live in my community that live in Los Angeles. And I've seen, the great exodus of Los Angeles, where people are leaving big cities, across the nation because they can't afford to live there. I'm sure Kari sees that in her city as well.
Absolutely.
And, we have people that are leaving these large cities, and the people that are leaving are the ones that are basically the infrastructure of our cities.
Yeah.
So these are people that repair our roads. They pick up our trash. They make sure that the lights are on. And if those are the people that are leaving our cities because they can't afford to live here, how are our cities going to survive? And that, I mean, that comes from maybe sounds like a place of selfishness, but it's just those are the people that we don't see. We just don't see them, because we take it for granted that our cities run fine.
I mean, if teachers and nurses cannot no longer afford
if
to live in a
teachers and
city
nurses can't
too,
afford
where
to
are we
live
going to
there,
be? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have. So it's a major problem. I don't have the answers. I don't know what the answers are, but it's something where we have to look at what's broken and come up with new things and new solutions. And so that's why I want to be involved in those committees, those commissions, and see if I can, give a voice to the voiceless. Start with even helping some of our renter laws and our renter initiatives as well, because that's something that if somebody can't even afford where they're renting, they're going to end up on the street. There's so many people in the city, they are just one paycheck away from being unhoused.
Yeah.
One injury away, one paycheck away.
One
You're
injury,
totally right.
One medical
paycheck,
bill.
one illness, and so everything is, all mixed together.
Wow.
If we can't take off our health, we can't afford to go to the doctor, we get sick, we lose our job. I mean, all kinds of things. And it's just a domino effect. And the gap between the very rich and the very poor, I mean, it just keeps getting wider and wider and wider. We have a disappearing middle class. So, And I think because of my work in corporate America and mortgages, I think that those experiences will give me insight into how to advise or give constructive feedback to some of the things that are happening, at least in my city, in my local community.
Yeah.
And then
Wow.
we'll do it again in another city.
Tressa, wow. I am so overwhelmed and like emotional listening to you because the same things are happening here.
Mhm.
I think of so many of the families I worked with in the past and continue to, you know, some of the moms I continue to work with. And I think there's so few people like you. I want to just come down there and be your campaign manager on whatever you do next. But I mean, you've obviously you come at your career as, you know, it's there's a really great term, social, like it's social advocacy. What is the word
Mhm.
there? There's a word there. Like it's not just your career. It is your work in the world.
Mm.
How do you see this advocacy evolving?
I'm not really sure. I mean, there was a podcast episode you had, Kari, where you said something about being curious.
Mhm.
And that really spoke to me of just being curious about something. So that's actually that episode kind of inspired me to apply for the LA Forward Academy because it was something where I said, okay, well, I'll get curious about politics and
Mm.
just and see where that evolves. But my vision is creating an organization, a space where people can go for multiple services. So it's something that I've talked to my brother about. My brother's a minister in Mesa, Arizona. He's launching a church there, and he has his own passion for social impact and wanting to make a difference. And so I said, well, we should put our heads together of what kinds of things can we put together where we're helping people with resources for housing, healthcare, recovery, all kinds of different things that can really help. He works a lot with victims of domestic violence and trauma, and so I think there's things where we both care about certain things that we could kind of align and come up with something really great that impacts the world.
Yeah.
I'm just so lucky in what I do to be able to be on the teams of these amazing human beings and mostly women in particular. And I mean, listening to you today just, I mean, it makes me teary. It makes me emotional because I just think, how lucky am I that I get to spend time with you and support you as you go out and change the world. You know, that means so much to me. And so I'm so thrilled that our listeners get to hear from you as well. We're going to put all your links and so forth in on our social medias and in the
Sure.
show notes, but is there anything in particular you would like to impart here before we go on song lyrics? Again, thinking everything we've talked about here, like if you were to give a piece of advice to our listeners who are listening and thinking, gosh, I've never thought about buying a house, or I am that person who thinks I can't do this. I can't, or they're listening to your advocacy and that's sparking some curiosity in them. Like, is there a mantra or a piece of wisdom you'd like to share?
Why not me? I mean, I think that's what people should. I know that have said that to myself, is you close your eyes, you envision something, and before you say that will never be me or I can't do it, why not? Why not me?
So it's true. And
Yeah,
you're such an embodiment of that. Thank you so much.
thank you. My mom, I remember when we were young and we were raised, in a Christian household, and I asked her, I said, what's the difference between us, we're raised Christian. What's the difference between us and people that that are other people? And she said, really not much. I mean, she said, we all enter this world hungry. She said, we've just found a piece of bread.
Mm.
And so it's our responsibility to share
Mm.
with other people that are hungry. And she just gave me that analogy as a young child, same thing for my brother. And so we've always been just a family of looking of ways we can impact and help other people.
Wow.
I got to meet her mom over the holidays, and she's so great, and just like sort of sat court at Tressa's house. Because the great thing about her mom was she was coming into town, and Tressa's like, all my friends kind of want to meet her. Should I have an open house? I'm like, hell yes, you should have an open house. And it was, I mean, each woman came into that space with your mom, and you were sort of standing above, in the little kitchen area. And she wrote down everybody's name and little pieces of information. But it was like, you could just see as each one of us walked into the room and saw your mom, and she's itty bitty, we were just so like thrilled. It was like that energy, that queen energy, literally queen energy. It was so good. So
Where
good.
does she live, Tessa? Where is she?
She lives in Savannah, Georgia.
Wow.
Everyone calls her Mom Pope.
Nice.
Shout out to Mom Pope.
Everyone calls her. Shout out to Mom Pope. Well, when I was a child, if we were in the department store, so we're in Sears or Wards, if I heard other kids say mom, I knew I would not find my own. So I always would yell out, Mom Pope, so that she knew it was me calling her. And so from there it stuck.
That's awesome.
So with that in mind, the sort of queen energy, I would love for you to share your song and the lyrics that you brought to us this week.
Sure. So inspired by Lisa, she encouraged me to put together, like a playlist. Again, it gets me pumped up. So some days are easier than others to be motivated or inspired to, get to work. And so this is one of the songs from my playlist. And so I'll read some of the lyrics. Do you want me to tell you the name of the song or just read the
go ahead and
lyrics
say
first?
the name of the song, the artist,
Okay.
and then you can read the lyrics.
So this is Stand Up by Cynthia Erivo. It's from the movie Harriet. And some of the lyrics that speak to me are early in the morning before the sun begins to shine. We're going to start moving towards that separating line. I'm wading through muddy waters. I got a made up mind, and I don't mind if I lose any blood on the way to salvation. And I'll fight with the strength that I've got until I die. And I know what's around the bend. It might be hard to face because I'm alone. And I just might fail, but Lord knows I've tried. Sure as stars fill up the sky.
Full body chills. I mean, seriously.
I could hear that song playing while you were, beautiful.
So good.
I love it. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tressa, just for sharing, for coming on here and sharing even just a piece of your inspiring journey, because I think this would be a much longer episode if we went into all of it, and just your insights and your hopes and your dreams to make an impact, and this vision you have for making it more inclusive and better for more people. It's just been an honor to hear you share that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, ladies, for what you do. I continue to listen to the podcast on my morning walks, and so it's great motivation.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you to all of the people listening to our podcast and to this episode in particular. Again, we have all Tressa's links in the show notes. Where you actually have your license in 3 different
Well, right now,
states.
just California and Arizona. And we're working on some other states.
That's right. So, you may not be in those areas that she can help you with a mortgage, but, if you are intrigued by her, as you should be, you can follow her on Instagram and see the stuff that she's sharing. And, if you're curious and you want some feedback, Tressa is a wealth of knowledge and she's an amazing networker. So feel free to reach out to her. But you can get more information there.
This was so empowering and inspiring. And so to our listeners, please consider sharing this episode with anyone you think would benefit, or just everyone who could use a little inspiration and just a little reminder to get out of their own little world. So yeah, thanks for listening. We will be back next week with another great episode. So until then, goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.